The Battle of Britain started in slippery and wet conditions on the Sunday. Kankkunen was the first man on the road. He wasn't going to be able to win the championship, but what he could do was support Didier Auriol. Carlos Sainz had trouble at Chatsworth when he went into a water splash with enough force to damage the radiator by pushing bodywork onto it. The radiator needed replacing later on, but Auriol was in trouble right from the word go. He clipped a rock here near the water splash and damaged the suspension and the front wheels. He limped out of the Chatsworth stage and he dropped down into 80th place. Clipping the rock, launching himself wide and then dropping into the water splash did a lot of damage to the Celica. It looked as though Auriol's championship chances were over. He limped through the stage, knowing full well that Sainz was escaping up front. But the next 3 days would prove to be very exciting. On special stage 3 of the 29, Colin McRae took the fastest time and moved into the lead of the event. It was a lead he wasn't to lose. Francois Delacour, in contrast, was quickest at Harewood when he cut the course, something for which he was disqualified at the end of leg 1. The British champion Malcolm Wilson was competing again, this time in his regular British Championship car. At Clumber Park, he would find himself with a lot of debris in the radiator and in the cooling ducts. To find out why, we go on board with Wilson and co-driver Brian Thomas.
300. Keep at it, good man.
At over 100 miles an hour, that slide left Wilson looking a little bit shaken. But not half as shaken as Will Hoy, former British touring car champion, out on only his second ever rally, co-driven by Mike Corner in a Group N Toyota.
That hurt.
In replay, the car hit some bumps and launched itself off the stage, heading towards the trees. And the tree won. They were out on just stage 4. On the second day of the rally, Auriol started badly. He rolled the car and damaged it, and then leaving this water splash, the car ground to a halt. It took Auriol a lot of time to get the car restarted, and he did so eventually, only with the help of some of the thousands of marshals on the RAC. Up front, Colin McRae was leading and pulling away. It was becoming a little bit like New Zealand. McRae was McRae's only opposition, and although he was going fast, he wasn't going flat out. He didn't need to. Service for Auriol, very important because not only was the car damaged, but a turbo would also blow on the second day. Bruno Thierry had a full worked Borum escort for the first time this season. It was his first rally on mainland Britain, having only briefly competed on the Isle of Man in the past, but he was immediately on the pace. Stig Blomqvist, the Swedish champion, was also being seen on a World Championship outing for the first time, and reminding people why he was World Champion in 1983. Ari Vatanen remains popular with the British spectators, and he too was going well, on an event that he'd won 10 years before. Jörg Kankkunen was now in second place and involved in a battle royal with Carlos Sainz. Kankkunen and Grist were on the limit as they tried to keep the Toyota ahead of the Subaru, until this happened.
Turn long K left, opens to fast left over crest, 70. Flat right over crest, 50, fast left.
They lost 30 seconds and most of the lights, and they had to drive through the second of the Grisdale stages virtually in the dark. Carlos Sainz, though, was in second place and well clear of Didier Auriol, although Auriol was now moving back up through the leaderboard. The question of team orders came into play. Would Colin McRae be asked to pull over and allow Sainz to win the rally, thereby making sure of the world title? Spectators decided to help. They placed logs on one stage in front of Sainz, who went off in avoidance. A stage later, he lost control, he lost concentration, he lost the championship.
No, la cagamos, dale.
With the Subaru off in a ditch, the spectators now decided to help him. It was ironic. The championship had started in Monte Carlo with the spectators throwing snow onto the road, catching out McRae and Schwartz, and spectators would in a way help determine who was world champion by placing logs in the middle of the road. Sainz had to avoid them at over 160 kilometers an hour. It could have been a very big accident, and somebody somewhere should be very ashamed. That meant that Didier Auriol would be world champion, while Bruno Thierry continued to go all out in his Ford Escort. He was on target for a finish in the top 3. Stig Blomqvist was also going well, moving his way up into 4th place, while Malcolm Wilson, who desperately wanted to improve on his 1993 3rd place results, went off on the final day and had to retire. Ari Vatanen would take 5th, co-driven by Fabrizio Pons. Still no win for Vatanen, but he remained ever popular with the British fans. And this the moment that Didier Auriol knew he was champion. He passed the stricken Subaru of Sainz and Moyer, which eventually returned to the stage, but they'd lost 34 minutes, and with the championship gone, Sainz called it a day at the next service area. And so, with 16 World Championship wins to his name, Didier Auriol would win the championship for the first time in 1994. The season had started badly for him, crashing out in Monte Carlo, but all in all, it had been a good year. Formula 2 here went the way of Gwyneth Evans, with the Gordon Spooner-prepared Ford Escort RS 2000. That car being seen on a World Championship round for the first time. The Welshman had battled long and hard with this man, Tommy Mäkinen, who eventually threw the Nissan at the scenery. This accident happened within sight of Gwyneth Evans' house. It cost Mäkinen the lead of the Formula 2 division, although he would be able to continue. A splendid 8th was Jan Harbig, who despite a brush with spectators on one stage, was able to do exceptionally well on his first rally with a turbo car, with a Group A car and on pace notes, not to mention being in Britain. And this was Mäkinen. Despite all the damage, despite no screen, he was the quickest Formula 2 car on this stage. Into 10th place came Gregoire de Mavius, and that was enough to give General Motors Europe the Formula 2 crown by just 1 point. He was backed up as ever by the British Formula 2 king David Llewellyn. He'd had a rather lacklustre first day, but then Llewellyn started to fly. He finished 11th, while Jesus Puras won the Group N championship, although Englishman Johnny Milner won the Group N section on the RAC. But the hero of the hour was Colin McRae. He'd won in commanding fashion by 3 minutes and 33 seconds from Kankkunen, with Bruno Thierry 3rd ahead of Blomqvist and Vatanen, both in Ford Escort Cosworths. Into 6th place at the finish came Auriol, enough to give him the title, while Evans won Formula 2 from Mäkinen and de Mavius was 3rd, 10th overall. Didier Auriol, the first Frenchman to win the World Rally Championship. He did so by taking 6th place on the Network Q RAC Rally. General Motors Europe won Formula 2, Jesus Puras won Group N, and Isolde Holderried won the Ladies' Award. Sainz was disappointed not to be champion, but Toyota were delighted with their manufacturer's crown, with Skoda just 1 point adrift of the Formula 2.